Hello everyone, my name is Erica Denham and I'm with MetaProcure. We are the Workforce Management and Procurement Services business line of Metasys Technologies Incorporated. Joining me today is Roy Anderson. Roy is the Chief Procurement Officer and Vice President of Procurement Services at MetaProcure. In today's session, we're going to talk about how moving transactional activities to procurement services allows your internal teams to focus on what matters most. Welcome, Roy.
Thank you, Erica. I really appreciate your time. What I'd like to do is go through how a procurement utility can really make a difference inside your organization. But to start, let's talk about the transformational roadmap. This is the roadmap that I reviewed with a number of chief procurement officers regarding where they are inside of their transformation in their organization. Many procurement organizations start with the invoice process. Basically, they get invoices in and then issue a purchase order after the fact. Now, of course, that's not very strategic. It's very transactional in nature and actually has very little value other than just starting the process of getting purchase orders into the system. But that pre-AP group then moves to the point where you have a transactional team that are driving purchase orders. This is where companies start to put in e-procurement systems to try to automate that purchase order process. Then your teams become more skilled. They drive RFP activity. You start getting to the point where you're doing things earlier in the process until ultimately hitting that point where the strategic sourcing, where you're starting to bring in the skill sets and capabilities to be able to bring together organizations inside your company and give them the opportunity to see what the value is that strategic sourcing can provide. This is the area that MetaProcure will focus on. It's the idea that why reinvent this wheel? Company after company have gone over and done this. Now the opportunity is let's skip over this activity and be able to utilize a utility that can provide each and every one of these types of services so that you, the internal procurement team, can provide the greatest value, and that's the next generation of what procurement brings to the table. This next generation is driving supplier collaboration. More than just a quarterly review, it's understanding what the suppliers have in terms of their R&D efforts, their portfolio of activity, so that they can bring forward new innovation that's going to be able to drive improvements inside of your line of business. This is where you start to embed their innovation, bring together cross-functional teams that get to the point where supplier innovation and your line of business are they're in sync. They're working together to create a greater value proposition that's going to drive profitability for your corporation and better supply chain processes for the procurement function, and your suppliers love it because they get embedded deeper and deeper into your organization. This type of partnership is critical to be able to really drive value out of the supply chain. We also want to make sure that you have the time to really drive risk management. As you get more and more suppliers deeper into the organization, you have suppliers across a global map, you need to be able to understand the risks associated with those suppliers. Where do you need to take action to mitigate risk, have multiple suppliers, have multiple origins of the materials and services so that you can maintain the integrity of your supply chain through all the major changes that happen within the global environment. You ultimately get to the point where you have the data, the capability, the skill sets, and the time to be able to be a value add at the decision point. That's where the people are at the table, the CEO, the CIO, the HR executive, the line of business executives, and they're looking to bring more value to the growth of the company, and you need to be there as well. When the CEO is looking to grow a particular piece of business, they'll look to the CIO and say, can you bring me the technology that will make that happen? And look to the HR executive to say, can you bring me the labor skills that can make that happen? They also need to look to the procurement team to say, can you bring me the supplier skills that allow us to make that happen? And ultimately, the procurement team is embedded in the line of business, driving significant value across that entire structure. What I found and what every CPO I've talked to says is that this takes an awful lot of time. It is a significant requirement to have the data and capabilities and the time to be able to drive that value. If you are full of transactional activity, if you are taking an enormous amount of your resources, the people, the technology, your budget towards driving the transactions, you'll never be able to start adding the value that's required to be in that next generation. This is the synergy between the procurement utility that provides the plug-and-play solutions for the technology, administration, and support of your purchasing activities that allows your team to become that next generation strategic focused group. What I like to do is called the procurement utility is to take all the work that we've done in the Fortune 50, all the tools and skill sets and capabilities, third-party solutions, and be able to package them up and give them to everyone so that everyone can benefit from that type of value proposition that the procurement utility can provide. As an overview, we want to be able to provide you strategic sourcing, not across all of your categories, but selected categories where we'll be able to help you provide the talent and the technology and the experience in a particular category that's going to be able to optimize that solution. You know that when you are doing a strategic sourcing event, you may be doing it once a year or even once every 3 years. If you bring in the right third parties that have this experience and they're doing it every quarter across a number of companies, they're going to bring in the levers and the marketplace experience that you won't ever be able to have. It is appropriate as a procurement leader to be more of a conductor, bring in the right solutions that are able to drive this value proposition. Our overview provides those strategic sourcing value. We provide the cloud technology solutions utilizing the Ariba framework to be able to give you the spend visibility and sourcing, the reverse auction and contracts that allow you to look for the spend, who's buying it, what they're buying, where they're buying it from, create better sourcing solutions based upon that data, drive reverse auctions where it's appropriate, and then into contracts that you can manage. Those contracts feed the procure-to-pay system that allows you to have the catalogs and the workflow and the end-to-end processing so that you can drive efficient order placement that then moves into electronic invoicing where the invoice has to match the purchase order, and then you can spend more and more of your time running supplier management utilizing the tools that are available in the marketplace. All of that, all the tool suite and the administration of that takes an enormous amount of resources, people that know how to run those processes, and it's important that you utilize the utilities that are available to you so that your team, once again, can go towards the more strategic activity within collaboration, innovation, and supplier management. I have also found that unless you have a strong, robust communications program, that you're going to miss individuals. You won't get the penetration that you need. Individuals won't understand what they're doing, why they're doing it. It is critical that your internal customers have a communications plan, that they receive the communications the way they want to in order to be able to encourage the change management that's going to make this program successful. Because everything that we do as a team is to be able to have the right supplier, which could very well mean a change in the supplier base or a change in the product type or a change in the process that we go through that's going to require them to understand why it's good for them. And they want to get it in the communication mode that's most important to them, whether it's by email or by text or by webinars or videos or one-on-one training sessions. That type of communication drives penetration, penetration drives compliance, compliance drives holistic cost savings. We also know that once you start getting a tool set in place with these types of contracts in place, there is an enormous amount of work that comes into this funnel, into the procurement group. These are orders that would go out to friends and neighbors and the last supplier that we dealt with through a phone call or an email from your internal customer. That's the work that many people have called maverick buying. Now that work is going to start to come into the funnel, and you're going to need administrative support, buying support to be able to manage those transactions until they can become a part of the spend data into the strategic sourcing and then drive back into a contract and a catalog. So that circle of activity allows us to go from spend analytics into sourcing, contracts into procure to pay, into e-invoicing through supplier management back into ERP, which then feeds the spend analytics. So you have a nice circle of activity each time getting more effective, more complete understanding of the data, better results from the suppliers. And then we believe that the cost of this program is already embedded in your supply chain. The inefficiencies that are in a program where you have multiple suppliers and not quite the right technology and not the compliance to the contracts, there's a significant amount of spend that's not being optimized. And the differential is your savings and pays for the cost of this entire structure. Very similar to how a P card works. So if you look at an example of a P-card, P-card is very often one of the first programs that a procurement team puts into place. Some way of getting all that spend out there and be able to get it onto a card. It helps your accounts payable function because now they have one bank card to pay rather than the hundreds of suppliers. It gives your internal customer some level of flexibility and freedom. And now you get a little bit of reporting on that structure, and in many cases, even a rebate. But that's where the P-card ends. What the P-card doesn't do is it doesn't drive spend to the contracted suppliers. It doesn't create that control so that you have compliance to those contracts, and it does not necessarily speed the processing and placement. One of the stories that I was presented with was an individual that had given out P-cards to their team, so their individuals would then hop in their company truck, take a ride to the store, buy the product on the P-card, and come back. So the cost of the item might have been even less, but the cost of their time and the time of the vehicle that they were utilizing increased the cost of the expenditure dramatically. Now that doesn't happen all the time. That's obviously an exception to the rule, but it's those types of things that add cost to the program where you don't need it. The MetaProcure utility, for the same level of cost structure, can speed the payment process from end to end. Now that you have a sourced contract that drives into a catalog, that drives into a purchase order online, and an invoice that matches it, you're going to be able to then pay that invoice on a timely basis. It will be an accurate invoice. So therefore, you're going to be able to get improved time to pay. You're going to have better compliance with your contracts. You're going to be able to have more accuracy end to end. Interestingly enough, it also lowers the cost of to your suppliers, because now all these orders go directly to the supplier electronically. They don't need salespeople to chase the orders. They don't need accounts receivable people to cut additional invoices or fix invoice problems. That accuracy lowers the cost to them. Therefore, they become more profitable, and they can take their salespeople and work with you in the line of business to create that collaboration and innovation that we talked about. So end-to-end, this procurement utility provides you the tools for the entire suite, provides you the services, including the analysis, reporting, aggregation of spend, and a communications program, and then ties it all together that allows you to get your payment terms, which in the end of the day will pay for the entire program. So the efficiencies by the program will ultimately pay for the program. Benefits to you, 5 to 15% savings on the holistic spend management. We talked before about the amount of time it takes for procurement to order and finance to be able to fix problems and accounts payable to handle paper. All of that work can go away. Your procurement team can now be focused on next generation procurement practices. Your finance team can spend less and less time on the controller function of reclassifying invoices, and they can spend their time on budget optimization. Your accounts payable team will see all of those invoices on the supplier side done electronically and more accurately, reducing their time and effort and allowing them to be more efficient. Your line of businesses know that when an order gets processed through the system, it'll be the right order, approved appropriately, placed with the right supplier, and delivered to them on a timely basis. You'll get the spend analytics and reporting that gets better and better all the time that allows you to drive demand management. That demand management will make sure that you have the time and effort to be able to make sure you have the right supplier with the right product mix, and that you can incorporate new solutions into your line of business as effectively as possible. And then, as I mentioned before, lowering the cost to your suppliers. So they have less salespeople on the process, less receiving time, get paid more accurately. And note that if you're putting the contract to 2 suppliers rather than 10, those 2 suppliers get the business, not the other 8. Therefore, giving your suppliers what they were promised, and therefore making their profitability higher. The program also provides you the strategic sourcing, the cloud technology, and the control of the supply chain that allows you to create not only innovation, but also allows you to work on that supplier risk mitigation strategies. At the end of the day, the P-card spend there'll still be P-card spend there, but only where it's appropriate. And then all of the rest of that work will now go into controlled contractual spend. So MetaProcure provides this entire end-to-end solution as a utility that can literally be paid for by the efficiencies of the overall program. I look forward to talking to you about this. Please feel free to give me a call, send me an email, use Twitter to get a hold of me, and I'll respond back to you as quickly as possible. I hope you had a great day, and thank you for listening.